And I'm now
so unmuted.
Thank you very much. And I'm now recording. So welcome, everyone. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the second of our grant training programs. This time around, we're going to be focusing on global grants. We have a number of great speakers here for you. This is being recorded and it will be able to be found on the district website at the end. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat room. I'll be monitoring that for the leaders, and then we can ask questions as we go through. I'd like to also at this time, I guess, announce and thank Anna Mae Kobe. Did I pronounce that right, Anna Mae?
It's Kobe.
Yes, that's correct. Kobe.
Thank you, Kobe, yes. So Anna Mae is a past district governor from another district outside of our area, but has agreed to take over the foundation leader for our district for the coming Rotary year. So thank you very much, Anna Mae, taking over the reins from past District Governor John Cram. A big shoes to fill, but I have no doubt it'll be a great year. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, and speaking of PDG John Cram, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thank you, Governor John. Wrong one. Okay, this is going to be slideshow from the beginning. Slideshow from the beginning. All right, well, here we are. We're going to kind of review some things we talked about last time. I'm going to introduce a new subject. This is not going to be testable. It's just interesting information that most Rotarians don't know about. Then we're going to introduce a brand new way to get a club grant that was approved just last Monday. After that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bob, and we will have a discussion on global grants. All right, okay, in order to qualify for a grant, you have to view all of the videos. One is the foundation overview, which we covered last month. That is currently available on the District 7390 website under Foundation. Dr. Amy presented on Club Awards last month. That is also available on the website. Today, we're going to have global grants that will be live today, and tomorrow it will appear on the district website. And then the community assessments, which is something that we added last year, an important new portion of global grants that is covered and is now available on the 7390. You also have to take and pass 4 quizzes, one in each of those areas, and that is currently on the 7390 website. Plus you have to sign and submit an MOU for your club. Now, here's something that not many people know. For every $1 that a Rotarian donates to the annual fund, he or she accumulates a foundation recognition point. And these are points that you may use to recognize people for outstanding service. They can be transferred to a Rotarian or a non-Rotarian, and it's easy. Rotary International will help you with it. If you want to get on and see how many that you have, follow those simple instructions. Sign on to My Rotary, select Manage. There'll be a drop-down box that says Club and District Administration. And you have to be very careful with your cursor. You have to move it from there directly right and then drop down to Reports. And then you can find your foundation recognition points. Again, these are yours to use for a good cause. You earned them when you were so nice to contribute to the foundation. Now, last month, the District Grants Committee approved the pre-funded district club grant. And this was done in response to the small clubs who could not come up with the $5,000 they would initially need to do a club grant. That was the usual district club grant process. Fund the project in its entirety and wait to be reimbursed by the district. If you have a very small club, you're short of funds, you don't have many members, we've got COVID, we're here to help you. We want you to do club grants. So the pre-funded club grant, this is an excellent time to turn it over to Dr. Amy Spotts to explain it.
So this is an opportunity if your club's budget is decreased because perhaps your major fundraiser for the year had been to be canceled due to COVID early reasons, or perhaps some clubs has lost some membership, which has made their revenue decline. You can now apply for a pre-funded district club grant. So to do that, when you submit your form of intention, which is due March 15th, there's also an application for a pre-funded district club grant. How this differs from our usual model is that your club would only need to spend their half of what they're requesting in a district club grant. So for instance, if you're going to do a $5,000 project, our current reimbursement model requires your club to spend the entire $5,000, submit all your final reports along with your canceled check and your invoices, and wait to be reimbursed by the district. Sometimes that's a process that can take a month or so. Your club may not be able to do that this year, so they would only have to spend $2,500, show the district the canceled check for the $2,500 and the invoice that needs to be paid, and district would more or less ante up the other $2,500 to the club so that the project could be completed.
Thank you, Dr. Amy. Anything else?
Oh, not unless there's any questions.
Okay, now this is a new project. It's still being developed. It is designed for clubs who do not have the funds to pay for everything the first time. It is not designed for clubs who have the wherewithal to pay for it. Please cooperate with us. Dr. Amy and Nigel will be glad to work with you as we work our way through this. Still, an important aspect of all club grants: do not start that project until the Club Grants Committee notifies you that you may. We have to put that onto the district spending plan, and it has to be approved up at RI. If you start it before then, you just will not be reimbursed. Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to find my stop sharing. All right. Okay, now I'd like to turn it over to the co-chair of the Global Grant Subcommittee, Dr. Bob McLenithan, who's going to talk about global grants.
Okay, thank you for having me, and thank you for being here. Let me wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, as whatever suits you. I'm going to try to share my screen and see what I can accomplish here. Okay, did I accomplish my task so far? Looks like I did, to me anyway.
Yes,
So
you did, Bob. You're good.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're here to discuss today the Global Grant Program. I'm Dr. Bob McLenithan. I'm a co-chair of the Global Grants Committee, Subcommittee for District 7390. I thank everybody for their commitment to Rotary and for making yourself more knowledgeable about the Rotary Foundation on behalf of your club and for our district. We have a lot of people in our district who are willing and able to help you with your global grant application. Our chairwoman is Kathleen Stout, who is also on the call here today, and she can help me to answer questions when we've finished. And these are the other members of our Global Grant Subcommittee. We were saddened recently by the loss of past District Governor John Judson, who was also a member of our committee. We do all want you to succeed in doing good in the world. As a liaison, we'll have somebody from our committee work with you if you wish to help you put together a global grant. We won't exactly do all of the work for you, but we will offer guidance and share our knowledge freely for whatever that's worth. There are 3 specific types of global grants that are available. They're shown on this slide. They are the humanitarian projects, vocational training teams, and graduate level scholarships. Just a general comment about each one of these things. The humanitarian project, must include the active participation of Rotarians and not just be a transfer of dollars. This is according to TRF guidelines. This participation must be substantial, and at a minimum, we on this Global Grant Subcommittee have determined that we would expect, again, just as a minimum, detailed communication with your host partner, your significant involvement in writing the grant and grant reports, your participation in determining budget and funding models, and of course there are hundreds of other things that you can do to be part of this. The vocational training team focuses on a humanitarian need by providing or receiving professional training. And the Global Grant Scholarship must be graduate level, international, and it must apply to one of Rotary's 6 as of now, areas of focus. We'll talk about a 7th in a little while. The Global Grant Subcommittee and the District Grant Committee may decline the endorsement of your grant application for any deficiencies in the level of participation by your club in a humanitarian project or vocational training team project. So work with your liaison in our subcommittee to help make sure that you've met our goals and reasonable goals. Because the Global Grant Scholarship is completely different, really, it requires a lot of coordination at the district level. It has its own subcommittee at the district level, and so we will not be discussing that Global Grant Scholarship during this PowerPoint. Let's set the stage for you as you start to take this journey into what I believe is the pinnacle of Rotary service to the world, perhaps aside from Polio Plus, and that would be the Global Grant. Once you have a general idea of what you want to do for a project, we want to make sure that you have a partner club, and you need to complete a form of intention so that you're providing a courtesy to notify your district leadership of your plans to request matching monies from the pool of money that's available for this use. So again, as a courtesy, we expect you to complete a form of intention in advance of starting your project, even perhaps before you start your application. Also, before beginning any project or application, there are some do's and don'ts that you should know about global grant applications. Do make sure that you get your ducks in a row. They tend to wander off, as Rotarians do. Also, make sure that you're communicating with your partner club or your partner district. Make sure that you know how to, and go ahead and do, log into your My Rotary website account and study the process for completing a community assessment, which we'll discuss a bit later. And I'll apologize now. I often call the community assessment a needs analysis, and I kind of use the terms interchangeably. So as I go through my talk today, I apologize for using that. They all mean the same thing to me. We'll discuss that a little bit later. And also note that the community assessment has its own recorded training session, as PDG John Cram mentioned at the beginning. It has its own recorded training session on the district website that you should view. There's some do nots as well, and we want to make sure that you do not spend a dime on your project. Don't begin anything on the project. Don't pound a nail. Don't buy a piece of paper. Don't do anything before you have all of your approvals. Once you're ready to begin, you can log into your My Rotary website and click on the sign-in wording. I don't see here up top. It was probably behind the window of people here. Then, yeah, there it is at the top of the page. Sign in right there. If you can see my cursor, I think you can. You're going to complete your login information. And that's here on this page. I used as my password a bunch of asterisks. You can take advantage of that if you want. Just kidding. And then the next page will appear once you've signed in and logged in. If you hover over the Rotary Foundation here at this part on the web page, you'll have a drop-down menu here that shows up. You'll want to move over here to the Grant Center. And if you click on that, you'll move to the next page. This page will load and you can click Apply for Grants at the very top of the page. Again, there's my cursor showing that. Or if you look at the bottom of the same page, there's another place for that here where it says Apply for a Grant. Once you've clicked that page, you'll move to this web page, which is the place where you actually begin to enter data for your project. When you hit the Let's Begin button there, there's only one thing that will show up in the drop-down menu. That's the global grant there. You'll click on that at this point. When you've clicked on that, you'll get the opportunity to actually enter the title of your grant in the empty space provided. My own experience and recommendation would be that you put the name of the host country in as part of your name. You know, we will use things like Malawi iCare or Uganda iCare grant, but you can choose something else. It just makes it easier for other people to search for your grant if they're trying to find out about it. And that would include the subcommittee, the Global Grant Subcommittee. So you'll enter the title that you're going to use, and then right underneath that, if you see my cursor here, you can determine which type of grant you're going to be applying for, a humanitarian grant, vocational grant, or again, scholarship, which we won't be talking about at this point. At this point, you do need to have your international Rotary partner, whether it's a club or a district, lined up, because you're going to enter their information down in this area down here. From this point onward, really every single grant, every grant proposal is going to be different, and the PowerPoint would actually be more challenging or more difficult to do if I tried to explain all of those things. But you can see here I've named this grant, the Uganda iCare grant, a couple years ago. And I've entered in the names of the people from the host club and my own name and moved on from there. But however, even though I'm not going to go through all of the different stages beyond this, once you've entered that data and you click on the next button, you're going to get a page here which each of these blue bars is going to give you a drop-down menu of questions that will appear. A series of questions will appear that must be answered until you've completed the whole application. Whenever you're working on your online, I'll call it paperwork for the lack of a better description, anytime you leave your work session, you're going to want to click Save and Continue at the bottom of any page. This will permit you to return in the future with your work saved, and you will not be able to submit or get any signatures until everything is completed to the satisfaction of your Global Grant Subcommittee and the full district grant committee, at which point your district leadership will sign it and move forward. And it might be a good time to talk about timing now. I had a question from one of the clubs that I'm liaising with about timing. And basically the Global Grant Subcommittee needs to have a couple of weeks. We asked for 2 weeks to review your application before we bring the application to the full district grant committee. And they'll also want some time to review it before we vote on it as a full group. So you've got at least a few weeks there, let's say 3 weeks at least, before even signatures can be affixed. And then there will be a few days while those signatures are put onto the grant, assuming you've done everything properly so far. At that point, the Rotary Foundation is going to take a few weeks probably to review the application before approval. At any one of those stages along the way, edits can be recommended or required by any one of those groups of people. Let's say you have, and then I want to add one other thing. If you've added travel into your global grant application, let's say, for example, that you're going to send doctors or teachers or agricultural professionals on a vocational training team, the Rotary Foundation requires 3 months from the date of the approval of the grant before any travel can happen. So if your project involves those things, You may want to be prepared for that 3-month hiatus. And I say all of this to prepare you for the hurry up and wait that can be a global grant. Once you decide that you want to go back to your application in the future, if you click on the top of one of the pages where it says My Grants, you'll see a list of your own grant applications like this. You can also use this page, and I'll try to find it here with my cursor again. Right here, there's a thing for reports. You can also find your reports on this page. So once you've completed your grant, you'll go to this page to pull up your report to enter data in your report. So you've already learned about what the district club grant is all about. It might be appropriate then to discuss what's different about a global grant compared to a district club grant. In general terms, a global grant is larger, and by this I mean it's more expensive. It's a longer process, as you've just heard me describe, and it's more complicated than the district club grant. In addition, it will include an international Rotary Club or a international district partner, and it also will include a match of your donations by the World Fund at the Rotary Foundation. So you don't need to have an international partner. You can, but you don't need to have an international partner to do a district club grant, and you will not have a match of your funding with the World Fund from the Rotary Foundation on your district club grant. Both of those things are necessary in the case of a global grant. We'll discuss it shortly, but I want to mention here that and I've written it here in red, is that the calculation for matching dollars from the Rotary Foundation has changed, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. So I talked about the do's. Here are some don'ts, some no-nos. There are many items. I'll let you read these, but as you read them, I'll mention that there are some things that are specifically not permitted. They should be fairly obvious. However, you may wish to read through the list. You can't do any kind of a project that would endorse or support abortion, weapons, or political points of view, or for that matter, religious points of view. Generally, construction of buildings is not permitted. While there are some exceptions to this, you could consult with your global grant subcommittee liaison for particulars on construction and building. There are some very notable Rotary activities that are specifically not eligible for support by a global grant. This is understandable if you recognize that grants are meant to reach outside of Rotary to assist those in need. They're really not intended to support Rotary or other Rotary efforts like RILA and things like that. Let's look at some real numbers then. What is the smallest grant that you could put together? So if you were a smaller club or just a club with financial trouble because of COVID or for whatever reason, the smallest global grant that you could put together, and this is a new number, is $30,000. This is under the new rules for a global grant from Rotary International. You can see in the right up there, I have indicated that this would require a $10,000 commitment from your Rotary Club. Our district would match that dollar for your second, sorry, let's just say it's $10,000 commitment from your club. I don't know if I said 1,000 or 10,000, but 10,000 from your club. The district would match that dollar for your second $10,000. And then the Rotary Foundation uses the World Fund to match the district's money dollar for dollar, and that would be your third $10,000. The Rotary Foundation no longer matches your club's money. They used to match that 50 cents on the dollar, but they no longer will do that. This is an important new change that you need to be aware of. The maximum size of a grant, while this is unlikely to come up routinely, but the maximum size of a grant would be $400,000, which would require an ask of $200,000 from the Rotary Foundation. And just for the record, our district could not be the sole source of district money in this case, because that exceeds our available annual funding. I'll be discussing each of these terms over the next many slides. Each one represents a significant concept that requires your understanding before you undertake the process of writing your grant application. So the needs assessment, and there I go again, it's called a community assessment. You can call it needs analysis, but by whatever name, you use, it must precede your writing of the grant. It's a critical component in making sure that you're addressing an actual need in the community where you anticipate working or partnering. It's not for you to say, we want to do this. It's for them to say, we'd like you to do this. District 7390 has a recorded module on this topic of the community assessment. You must complete that in addition to this Zoom meeting to be considered qualified. To be honest, the needs assessment, community assessment, may be among your greatest challenges. It will require close cooperation and coordination with your host partner in the community where the project will be performed. It may even require a site visit by you or members of your club, although hopefully your host partner will be able to accomplish that for you because, of course, they're there on the ground in that location. For the sake of brevity, you should think of this as a form of documentation of the need in a given area. The Rotary Foundation provides a full manual on the many acceptable ways to complete a needs assessment. You or your club could physically visit the community to undertake your own needs assessment for the area, but you must include your needs assessment with your application. There are some specific requirements to be considered qualified to participate in the global grant process. Our district is qualified to participate in the global grant process, so you don't need to worry about whether the district meets that obligation. You do, however, need to be sure that your own club is qualified each and every year. This is being addressed in part by your participation in this video session. You must also complete the other video sessions, as we've mentioned, on grant training and provided by the district, and you have to pass the short quizzes that show up after each session. In addition, you must make certain that the Memorandum of Understanding has been completed, signed, and submitted. So that leads me to the Memorandum of Understanding. It should be read in detail. This is going to be a document that will describe your obligations, and some of them can be a little bit burdensome in setting up all of the committees, accounts, and record keeping necessary for the grant program. It also includes a signature of your club president and your club president-elect, committing your club to abide by all of these detailed requirements. You signed a Memorandum of Understanding, so there should be no reason to breach the agreement. However, be aware that there are also consequences to you if you fail to do that. I'm sorry, I had some interruption there. You should fail to meet those obligations, there are consequences. There's a risk to the district. There's a risk to all the clubs in the district who may not be able to participate in the global grant process if you don't meet all of your obligations. The next keyword is accountability. Your club is accountable through your signature on the grant application for the proper use of grant funds, for document storage, for fiscal responsibility, and for good stewardship of those funds and so forth. Ensure that you're protecting the hard-earned money raised or donated to the Rotary Foundation as though it were your own money. Sustainability is a newer concept that we're dealing with in Rotary, and it's meant to focus your attention on creating grant projects that have a lasting impact in a community. Consider creating projects that generate small incomes for the community that can be returned to the project to extend its usefulness or to maintain any equipment or instrument that you purchased with your grant. Other components of sustainability are things like purchasing your materials locally in the host country and the project country. That would support their economy, but also it makes you want to make certain that replacement parts and knowledge about repairs can be obtained locally. You may also choose to include training or special education as a part of your project, because that knowledge would then be a permanent asset to the community. You can see on this slide a couple of other components to consider. Remember, since this is a recorded session, you can pop back anytime you want to look at a slide. Measurability is the next topic or the next keyword. There's great flexibility in the use of, in the choice of measures to be used to determine the success or failure of your project. A few examples are listed here. Truthfully, each project is different enough that there wouldn't be a way to present all possibilities in a Zoom meeting. You'll have to use your own judgment on those metrics, but you can see a few samples here. These images should be familiar to many of you. They represent the 6, soon to be 7 areas of focus into which all grants must fall. Sorry, it's out of focus there. But those images correspond to these descriptions: conflict resolution and peace, disease prevention and treatment, water and sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, economic and community development, and beginning on July 1st of this coming year, supporting the environment. Regarding these areas of focus, your Global Grant Subcommittee recommends that you select only a single area of focus unless the Rotary Foundation staff instruct you otherwise, and that has happened with us. So be aware that that can happen. But by having only one area of focus, it will make your grant application easier and less likely to garner exceptional or excessive scrutiny. And by that, I simply mean you're less likely to get a whole bunch of edits or required changes to your application. Remember that since all the applications are now completed, all of the applications are now completed online, as we described. You may wonder where Rotary International, or actually more correctly, the Rotary Foundation, gets its money to support these projects. Many of you probably know this, but most of it will come from your Paul Harris Award donations to the annual fund, whether it's just a single random donation or your every Rotarian every year contribution, a sustaining membership, or a Paul Harris Society annual contribution. These donations are held for 3 years, and then they're split 50-50 into the World Fund and the contribution that returns to District 7390 as our DDF, our District Designated Fund. Note that recently, when you're writing your grant funding model, you may have an individual or somebody outside of your club, a corporation or something, decide that they want to help fund your project. But the Rotary Foundation has begun to require a 5% management fee, a 5% management fee for any cash donation that is sent into the Rotary Foundation for a specific global grant. If you ask your Global Grant Subcommittee liaison for information, we can tell you how to avoid this surcharge, or at least one way to avoid the surcharge. Where does that money go? When we get that money back from the Rotary Foundation 3 years later, this is called the District Designated Fund that your district redistributes annually into our grant programs. And it does go to both the district club grants and the global grants, but it also can go to some other things that happen with the district, including Polio Plus. The World Fund is that other 50% of money that's donated to the Rotary Foundation annual fund each year. And that's where the Rotary Foundation money comes from to match the your donations, the district donation, to your global grant. So does your club have too much money coming in as donations or from fundraisers? Do you find that raising money to do good in the world is just too easy? I kind of doubt it, maybe, but I kind of doubt it. So I believe it's incumbent on each grant writer to place value on these donations or on the work done to generate the funds used in the grant. This slide represents how a responsible Rotarian would leverage the donations of their members or their community. And a quick glance here will demonstrate that the Rotary Foundation allows you and even encourages you to magnify every dollar that your club puts into a grant and increase its value to $3. Remember that this is a new matching formula. It used to be 3.5, and it is now 3 times your club contribution. Remember that your memorandum of understanding requires that you be a good steward of the Rotary funds, and Rotary's image in the world is influenced by the outcomes of our good works. And all of that has to do with the reporting requirements that we have at the conclusion of the grant. We have to document the work done, the quality of the work done, and we have to demonstrate the good that we do is sustainable. On top of that, Rotary needs to know the outcomes so that they can maintain their standing as the premier volunteer service organization in the world. You can use the My Rotary website, go to the grants page and get to work. The Rotary Foundation has tons of material available online to assist you in understanding and completing the global grant form. And from the needs assessment to the application itself and to reporting after completion. There is a manual for community assessments that you can find on the Rotary website. And there's also another manual for global grants in general. And it includes what types of service are available or eligible under each area of focus and what falls outside the bounds of that service. The Global Grant Subcommittee is here to give you a hand any way we can. We're here to help you. So we would like to help you get the ball rolling. This actually concludes my comments, but I'm open to questions from the floor. If either John Anthony or John Cram has received any, we'll try to address those now. I'll ask Kathleen Stout to give me a hand with those questions, answering those questions.
Okay, Bob, there are a couple questions on the chat. First one from Norm Basso. Can you get multiple clubs to aggregate to the $10,000 club minimum?
The answer is yes, and there's actually an unlimited number of clubs that can participate in this. There's no limit to the number of clubs that can participate to get even to that minimum of 10,000 or a larger number if you want to do that. Now, the district club grant, Dr. Amy can chime in here, but the district club grant, we have limited the number of clubs that, no, we've limited the dollar amount of the request for a district club grant to 25 grand. So that would be the maximum size, total size of a district club grant. So that would be smaller than the smallest global grant.
Next question from Jane Conover. If your project isn't finalized, should we submit the MOU just to be ready?
Jane, yes, the MOU is necessary for your club to be qualified, and you need to be qualified to do a district club grant or a global grant. And in fact, it's probably just prudent to complete that information anyway, so that later on when you go to apply for a grant, if you choose to do so, you're already enrolled. If you were not to do that, it just becomes another step that has to happen before you begin the process.
Okay. And the last one I have right now is from Jess Socrates. How do you avoid the 5% administrative fee? And Dr. Bob, why don't you go ahead and unshare?
Well, Jess probably already knows the answer to the question since he's on the committee. Oh, I see him shaking his head. Well, the answer is that if you have a, let's say that you've decided you're going to run a grant in a foreign country, you've written up everything and you're ready to go, you know, at least Jess, you know that you need to have a separate bank account for that grant. That bank account can be here in the United States, or it can be in the host country, or you could have one in each of those. If the donation of cash money that's coming from outside of your club and is not going to be matched by district money and so forth, that money can be put directly into the account, either in the host country or in the United States country, in your club's account. And then it is not managed by the Rotary Foundation, and therefore they don't take that 5%. Does that make sense? Are there additional questions?
And I think the real answer there, Jess, is when you get to that point, talk to either Bob or Kathleen. What other questions do you have this evening?
While we're waiting for some to come in under chat, or if someone wants to chime in, that's fine. I'll mention that Norm Basso is one of those persons who approached me recently with a question that prompted me to talk about the amount of time that's necessary to set up a grant. And I wanted to make sure that everybody is aware that we in the district, the Global Grant Subcommittee require a 2-week time span from the time we receive your what you think is a completed grant application for us to review it before we would bring it to the full district grant committee. In addition, the grant committee meets only once a month. Now, on occasion, I suppose we could make exceptions to this, but we don't want to make that a routine thing. So if you're going to ask the Global Grant Subcommittee to review something, and then let's say we decide that we want to approve it, we would like to be able to present that to the full grant committee before another meeting occurs. So it could actually be a month between the time you first think you've got everything complete, giving the Global Grant Subcommittee a 2-week period to review it before bringing it to the full grant committee, and then let's say 1 or 2 weeks where we would be presenting that to the full grants committee for their review before it's voted on the first Monday of any given month, barring a holiday. There are other delays, like I've mentioned. That is the delay once your application has gotten all of its signatures and everything. It's going to go off to Rotary, and they can take weeks to approve a grant. There's that time frame if you do have travel involved as well. So, and there are probably others that I've not thought of, Kathleen, if you can think of others.
Yeah, Bob, I think I'd like to add to what you're saying, because what you're saying is certainly correct. But if a club works closely with the Global Grants Committee, such as Norm working closely with Bob, as you go through the process, some of the questions and glitches or problems could be uncovered by someone such as Bob, and he might make recommendations so that when you hope the application is complete, it really is. It's looking good. It really speeds up the process if clubs would work closely with the Global Grants Committee. It just would make it simpler for the club and for the application.
I saw a question that was just asked about how COVID impacts these things, and perhaps I misunderstood what that question was. It seemed to show up in my chat there. I'm not sure that there are any special things that have been arranged because of COVID. Obviously, international travel is going to be curtailed quite dramatically during this time. Maybe there could be clarification of that question if somebody wants to fill me in on what that.
I know that the club I'm working with in India, the top 2 countries for COVID cases is India and the United States. So things have been on hold now for most of the year until, and India is also under a lockdown. So it's going to be country by country. It's just hard to predict. Everybody in Evanston is working from home now, and so that may impact how they're able to process things. So the long answer, but is we don't know. Does that help, Gene?
There are specific COVID grants that I should mention, and our district did receive one of those COVID grants, but I don't believe there are any new grants specifically for COVID at this point in time. I think those have gone at this point, if that's what the question was.
Okay, next is from Jane Conover. Is there a main database of international projects that are looking for support or district clubs looking for support? And the answer to that is yes, there is. You can get on the My Rotary site and find those. The disadvantage of that is you don't know who you're dealing with. We have sufficient experience in our district that we can speak for various people around the world or have at least somebody vouch for them. We've had a couple instances in which our foreign partner didn't really perform their duties as we expected. And that can have an impact on us. So while yes, it's available, we can't speak for the individual, can't necessarily speak for the individual.
I'll make an additional comment. The I'm getting an echo. Sorry about that if you are hearing it as well. So basically, we have people in our district who are already looking for partners. I can tell you that if you contact Norm Basso, he might have an interest. That's the only one I'm aware of, but Kathleen, you may be aware of
Yeah,
others.
I think there are other
Yeah, I
clubs
don't-
in our district
Yeah, I don't
who-
want to show any favoritism, but
who
that's just the
would
only one I know
be
of.
very interested in being a partner with another club.
And so the advantage of that is that you're working with other people in our district who have relationships overseas with different groups of people and already are aware of what's going on. They have their relationship with a partner club, with a partner district, that kind of thing. So rather than jumping onto the international website to track that down, maybe you still want to do that, but you may want to discuss or search around on our district, among our district clubs to find.
I could think of give some direction.
Well, go ahead and mention a couple of them, Kathleen. There's nothing wrong with
Well,
that. I know that people are interested in
right
having
now,
help.
I've had a request from people I know very well in Kenya. And it isn't, my club does not have the money to support another global grant right now, but I can vouch for the Rotary Club of Nairobi, and they might be very happy to work with a club in our district. And the thing that's nice about that is it helps us and our 7390 Rotarians build friendships and get to know people in other parts of the world.
Good point.
And I think
And I can,
guys might be interested in partnering. I mean, I can think of, I'd be happy to talk with Jane and with others and make suggestions on other places they might consider doing a grant.
and there's some other names I see on this Zoom meeting, people who can vouch for various clubs around the world. That includes Bob McClanahan and Jane. I know I can. Jenny, I don't know what your experience is. Jess Socrates certainly can. Kathleen
I mean,
can. Tom, do you have it?
Tom Burson is,
I was just going to say Tom. I'm not, also Kevin Cogan in the Carlisle Sunrise Club. So we have lots of people who can vouch for clubs that will work with us and basically follow the rules.
I would be comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm asking primarily because you're just starting from scratch, right? And
Oh.
so, certainly Norm and I've talked, so we very interested in hearing more about that project. But my committee is pretty new, right? So we're going to say, well, why Norm over something else? Or is there a pool within our district of clubs that are working on projects, and who knows that stuff? So it sounds to me like reaching out to Bob or Kathleen to say, what do you know about going on? So we can kind of evaluate.
Mhm. Good idea.
Other people you can rely on to include past district governors who have contacts throughout the world, governors elect after they've been to the International Assembly, and sitting governors.
I want to say something.
Please, Jess.
The partner club in a global grant is extremely crucial to the success or failure of a project. Because if you have a partner that you did not properly or adequately vet, it's dangerous. Okay, so I think, in my opinion, the partner club, the international partner club, or the host in that international country is very crucial to the success of the project. You just can't take a project and get any partner unless you have some relationship with them, or you have built some kind of relationship with them before the project.
And thank you. We can't overemphasize that. Know who you're working with. That being said, here's a trick question. Can you conduct a global grant that takes place in South Central Pennsylvania?
Yes. I won't answer.
Kathleen, you can't answer. Geez.
Can I
The
answer,
answer
John?
is yes. What was that, Bob?
Can I answer?
I was going to ask.
No. Well, the answer is yes, because to the rest of the world, we are a foreign country. So if you can get a foreign partner, I know of one global grant that was done in the hills of West Virginia. The governor down there purchased a mobile medical clinic to take around. I think there was one in New York. John, Anthony, do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about it, but I have heard tell of it. Yeah.
So we can conduct a global grant here. It just has to meet all the criteria that are out there. What other questions do you have? Again, if you take a look at the overview, there are the email addresses, points of contact. That includes myself, Bob, Kathleen, Amy, and Nigel. We are more than happy to work with you and provide you at least direction. Okay, Governor John, I turn it back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Past District Governor John and Dr. Bob. Thank you so much for everything that you guys did to put these two events together. Great training, great information. I know that you'll be a perpetual resource for the folks who want to take care of this. One last thing from the district, an idea had been pushed out to us that we should have, much like our Speakers Bureau on the website, we should have a database of ongoing thoughts about projects. And so that's something that I'll be talking to the grant committee about, putting together a list that lives on our website of projects that are either happening or projects that would like to happen, so that people can go to a central location to identify where they may be able to participate. So thank you again, all of you, for your participation. Don't forget to go to the district website for the additional module and for the quiz, so that you can
Quiz.
grant certified. Yes,
John, there are four quizzes, one per module.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else they need to know?
If you don't know, ask.
Right. Fair enough. All right, folks, thank you again very much. Have a happy and safe holiday season, and we'll see you around the wheel.
Bye, everybody.